On Christmas Eve, mall parking lots are supposed to feel safe. Bright lights, holiday music leaking from open car doors, families rushing with bags and laughter, breath fogging the cold air. Even at night, the place feels watched, guarded by cameras, security cars, and the hum of life refusing to sleep. That's why the scream didn't make sense. It cut through the noise like something alive. High, short, choked off too quickly. At first, everyone pretended not to hear it. A man loading gifts into his trunk froze, keys dangling. A woman with a crying toddler turned in a slow circle, eyes searching the rows of cars. Somewhere, a car alarm chirped, then stopped. I stood near my sedan, engine running, heater blowing warm air against the windshield fog. The radio was playing a soft carol, something about peace and joy. Then I heard it again. Not a scream this time. A voice. Low. Close. Almost calm. Don't look at me. The words came from between two parked vans at the far end of the row. No panic in the voice. No anger. Just instruction. I shut off the radio. The parking lot felt suddenly hollow, like the sound had sucked the air out of it. I told myself it was kids messing around. A prank. Christmas stupidity. Then I saw the shadow move. Something tall shifted between the vehicles. Wrongly tall. Too still. As if it was waiting to be noticed. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. One message. Get back in your car. I looked up again. The space between the vans was empty, but the voice whispered once more. This time right behind me. You already looked. The mall doors should have been locked. That was the first thought that crawled into my head as I stood there, staring at the glowing glass entrance from the middle of the parking lot. Bright red open signs still hummed above the doors, pulsing gently like a heartbeat that hadn't realized the body was already dead. I checked my watch again. 9:47 p.m. The same time. A cold unease settled into my stomach, slow and heavy. Christmas Eve shoppers were supposed to be everywhere at this hour. Last-minute gifts, frustrated parents, exhausted employees counting the minutes until freedom. But the lot around me was wrong. Too quiet. Rows of cars sat perfectly still, dusted with frost that sparkled under the overhead lights. No doors opening. No engines starting. No laughter drifting through the air. Even the wind seemed hesitant, whispering only when it had to. I told myself I was overreacting. After last night, my nerves were shot. Anyone would be jumpy after hearing voices that weren't there, after shadows moved when they shouldn't. I forced myself to breathe and started walking toward the mall entrance, my footsteps echoing too loudly across the asphalt. Halfway there, the lights flickered. Just for a second. When they steadied, something felt, shifted. Not different enough to point at, but wrong enough to make my skin prickle. Like when you walk into a room mid-argument and the silence greets you instead of voices. I stopped walking. Hello. I called. My voice vanished into the open space. That's when I noticed the cars. They were still warm. Thin streams of steam curled from exhaust pipes. Condensation fogged the inside of windows. Someone had been here moments ago. Hey. I called again, louder. Is anyone here? A shopping cart rolled slowly across the lane in front of me. No hands on it. It drifted until it tapped gently against a parked SUV and stopped, rocking slightly as if nudged by an unseen foot. My pulse hammered in my ears. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the lot. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but my legs felt heavy, rooted to the spot. I didn't want to admit it, but part of me was afraid of getting back into my car, afraid of what might already be inside. Then I heard breathing. Not close. Far. Too far to place. It echoed between the rows of vehicles, shallow and uneven, like someone trying not to cry. I followed the sound without thinking, drawn between two long lines of parked cars where the light didn't quite reach. Please. A voice whispered. A woman stepped into view. She looked ordinary. Mid-30s, winter coat, scarf pulled tight around her neck. Her hand shook violently as she clutched her phone, knuckles white. Thank God, she breathed when she saw me. You're real, right? I think so, I said, forcing a weak smile. Are you okay? She laughed once, sharp and broken. No, she said. I don't think any of us are. What do you mean? She glanced over my shoulder, eyes darting nervously toward the darker end of the row. It starts with sounds, she whispered. Voices that don't belong to anyone you can see. My stomach tightened. You hear them too? I asked. Her face drained of color. You shouldn't have said that, she murmured. The lights flickered again, longer this time. When they came back, the woman was closer. Too close. I hadn't seen her move. Don't answer when it talks to you, she said. That's how it learns. What learns? I asked. She opened her mouth to answer, and a voice cut her off. Not loud, not angry, calm. You already taught us. The sound came from everywhere at once. From under the cars. From inside the engines. From the empty air between us. The woman screamed. The lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the parking lot, thick and absolute. I felt something brush past me. Cold, trailing fingers grazing my sleeve. The smell returned, stronger now. Oil, earth, and that sickly sweet rot. Then the lights snapped back on. The woman was gone. Her phone lay on the ground where she'd stood, screen cracked, recording still running. The audio played through weak speakers. Her breathing, my voice, and underneath it all, dozens of whispers repeating the same words. Stay. 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 I backed away, heart racing, bile rising in my throat. No, I whispered. No, no, no. A single sentence appeared on my phone screen, typed by no contact I recognized. You heard the first story. Another message followed immediately. Now you're part of it. Somewhere behind me, between the vans at the edge of the lot, something shifted. Something tall, patient, and listening. And for the first time since the scream the night before, I understood the truth. The parking lot wasn't haunted. It was remembering. And it wasn't done with me yet. I didn't leave the mall parking lot right away. I don't know why. Maybe fear rooted me there. Maybe curiosity did. Or maybe, deep down, I already felt it tightening around me, the sense that leaving wasn't really an option anymore. I stood over the woman's phone for a long time. The screen kept playing the audio on a loop. Her breathing. My voice. And beneath it all, those whispers, soft layered, overlapping like a crowd speaking through clenched teeth. Stay. I shut it off and slid the phone into my pocket, though I didn't know why. Evidence, maybe. Or guilt. It felt wrong to leave it behind like abandoning a body. The parking lot lights hummed overhead, steady again, pretending nothing had happened. A car passed on the road beyond the mall. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and faded. The world hadn't ended. Just this place. I forced my legs to move and walked toward the mall entrance again. Up close, the glass doors reflected me back in fragments. My face pale, eyes too wide, breath fogging the surface. I pulled on the handle. Locked. I rattled it harder. Hey! I shouted. Is anyone in there? My voice echoed inside the empty mall, bouncing down long corridors of tile and glass. I could see the food court beyond, chairs stacked upside down, holiday decorations drooping as if exhausted. The mall was closed, but my watch still read 9:47 p.m. The time hadn't moved. That was when the paranoia began to bloom. I checked my phone again. No service. No missed calls. No notifications except the two messages still glowing faintly at the top of my screen. You heard the first story. Now you're part of it. What story? I whispered. The parking lot answered with silence. I backed away from the doors slowly, every sense stretched thin. I felt watched, not from one direction, but from all of them. From under the cars. From inside the light poles. From the dark spaces where the cameras couldn't quite reach. I made it back to my car without incident. The interior light flicked on when I opened the door, bathing the seat in weak yellow glow. Empty. Relief hit me so hard my knees almost buckled. I got in, locked the doors, and tried the ignition. The engine coughed, then died. No, I breathed. I tried again. Nothing. The dashboard clock flickered and reset to 9:47. That's when I noticed the other cars. Their dashboards were lit too. Row after row, faint digital clocks glowed through windshields, all showing the same time. 9:47. A memory surfaced then, something the security guard had said. Christmas Eve is when the ground remembers. The idea followed me home. Or tried to. When I finally got my car started, without explanation, I drove straight out of the lot, heart pounding the entire way. The second my tires hit the main road, my phone buzzed with returning service. Messages flooded in. Missed calls. Notifications. The world rushed back like it had been holding its breath. Except one thing didn't change. The time. My phone still read 9:47 p.m. I spent the next 3 days trying to convince myself it had been stress. Exhaustion. Some shared panic event fueled by crowd psychology and coincidence. That worked, until Christmas Eve came back. I was at home this time. Alone. Lights on. Curtains drawn tight. At exactly 9:47, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. A voicemail appeared without ringing. I didn't press play. It played anyway. The sound was faint at first. Wind rushing over open space. Then footsteps on asphalt. Then a voice I recognized immediately. Mine. "I think something's wrong," the voice said, shaky and unsure. "The mall doors should be locked." My blood ran cold. The recording continued, every word I had spoken in the parking lot, layered with sounds I hadn't remembered hearing. Breathing. Whispers. Low murmurs under the dialogue. At the end, a voice spoke clearly, calmly. "Another story is ready." The voicemail ended. The lights flickered. My living room stretched, walls pulling subtly farther apart, shadows deepening in corners where corners hadn't been before. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my keys. I don't remember deciding where to go. I only remember the pull. The mall parking lot looked different at night when it wasn't pretending to be normal. The lights were dimmer, spaced farther apart than they should have been. The painted lines on the asphalt curved slightly, bending away from straight paths. Cars sat in unfamiliar places, models from different decades parked side by side as if time had loosened its grip here. And people were there. Dozens of them. Standing silently between the rows. They didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't look at each other. They watched me. As I stepped out of my car, a man detached himself from the shadows and approached slowly. He wore a security jacket. Old, faded, the logo stitched in a style I hadn't seen before. "You came back," he said. "You called me," I replied. He nodded. "It calls through us sometimes." "What is it?" I asked. He glanced toward the far end of the lot, where the vans waited like sentinels. "It's the place between moments," he said. "Between closing and leaving. Between alive and gone. That doesn't make sense." "None of us thought it would," he replied quietly. He told me his name was Richard. He'd worked mall security 20 years ago. Christmas Eve shift. Power outage. Temporary closures. People stranded in the lot while management tried to fix the doors. At 9:47, he said, everything stopped. He described voices rising from under the cars. People seeing loved ones among strangers. The lot stretching longer the farther they walked. "Some of us stayed too long," he said. "Some of us listened. What happened to the rest?" Richard's eyes met mine. They learned our stories. I felt something brush my ankle. I looked down. A child stood beside me, no older than 8. Her face was pale, eyes hollow, mouth moving soundlessly. "What happened to her?" I asked. Richard swallowed. She answered when it asked her name. The child finally spoke. "Can you hear them too?" she asked me. I couldn't answer. Because I could. The whispers crept in from every direction now, forming fragments of memory and regret. I was just grabbing one thing. I told her I'd be right back. They said it was safe. The parking lot pulsed faintly, like a living thing. What do they want from me? I asked. Richard's voice dropped to a whisper. To remember them. The ground shifted. The people around us began to move. Not walking, not running, but sliding subtly closer, faces blurring, features overlapping as if the lot was rearranging them. The vans at the end of the row opened their doors. Inside wasn't metal. It was dark, deep, endless. You can still leave, Richard said urgently. But if you stay through another cycle. What cycle? He looked at his watch. 9:47. The lights went out. I woke up in my car. Morning light streamed across the lot. Shoppers moved in the distance. Everything looked normal. Except my reflection in the rearview mirror didn't move when I did. It smiled slowly. My phone buzzed. One story left. I knew then, deep in my bones, that this wasn't about haunting. It was about accumulation. Every Christmas Eve, the lot gathered voices, faces, memories, people who lingered between leaving and staying. And once it learned you, it never forgot. Somewhere beneath the asphalt, something ancient and patient shifted, listening for the next voice brave enough or foolish enough to answer back. And it already knew mine. By the time the next Christmas Eve arrived, I had learned enough to know I couldn't avoid it. I tried. I stayed home. I pulled the curtains tight. I turned off every light, disconnected my phone, even unplugged the heater. But at 9:47 p.m., it found me anyway. The lights flickered in a slow, agonizing rhythm, stretching my shadows unnaturally across the walls. The air thickened, heavy and wet, smelling of earth, rot, and something metallic. My chest tightened. My heart pounded. And then I heard it, whispering. Multiple voices layered, coming from every corner of the room. Not shouting. Not screaming. Just murmuring. Patient. Waiting. You came back, it breathed. I froze. The voice was mine. But it wasn't. I turned toward the sound, and the room seemed to stretch endlessly. Walls bent. Corners elongated. Time warped. My living room became the lot. The vans. The asphalt. All at once. A shadow moved under the kitchen table. Too tall. Too fast. Too wrong. It stretched toward me, folding space around it. I could see fragments of people. Faces twisted in fear, mouths moving soundlessly. They were trapped inside it, yet somehow alive, waiting for me to notice. I stumbled backward, tripping over the rug, heart hammering. The air vibrated with whispers. Stay. Listen. Learn. The shadow shifted again. It was growing, folding the room into itself. Reaching. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't respond. My mouth opened, words dying before they could leave. Who are you? I whispered. Everyone you ignored, the shadow said. Every story you didn't finish. Every voice you forgot. The darkness folded over me. Hands, too many hands, brushed across my skin, cold, clammy, pulling me into the void. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed instantly, leaving only the whispers behind. I don't belong. I shouted. You do, it replied. Because you listened. I tried to shut my eyes, tried to block it, but it didn't matter. The walls of my room became asphalt. The ceiling became sky. The vans materialized before me, white and green, doors open, inviting. I could feel the hollow air inside them, folding endlessly, waiting. Something emerged from the first van. A figure tall and thin, faceless, limbs stretching at impossible angles. Its hands reached for me. Another figure stepped from the second van, older, shadowed, echoing my own voice. You came back. I ran. Or thought I ran. The parking lot stretched infinitely, the rows of cars bending around me in impossible directions. Each time I glanced over my shoulder, more figures appeared, waiting patiently, whispering my name. Please. Stop. I screamed. It didn't. Couldn't. The lot had learned my voice, my memories, my fear, and now it wanted everything else. I ducked behind a car. My hands shook violently. The engine started on its own. I tried to escape, but the asphalt under my tires rippled like water. The light poles bent, the shadows merged. Time itself seemed to falter. A whisper echoed directly behind me. Soft, calm, terrifying. Welcome home. The ground shifted under me, and I felt myself falling. Not down, not up, sideways. Into the lot, into the vans, into the endless memory of every person who had ever vanished here. I screamed until the sound was replaced by silence. And then, I understood. The lot doesn't just take you. It remembers you. Every fear, every step, every word spoken in the wrong place at the wrong time. It folds you into its memory, stores your voice, adds your story to the chorus. Once you're in, you belong to it forever. I tried to fight. I tried to run. But the lot doesn't let go. It waited. And now it was mine too. Somewhere far in the distance a van door closed. Somewhere closer, a whisper repeated my name. And the lot, patient and inevitable, smiled. I wasn't leaving. Not ever. Morning came without warning. No gradual light. No soft transition. One moment there was only the lot. Endless asphalt, bent light poles, vans breathing in the dark, and the next, sunlight spilled across rows of perfectly parked cars as if nothing had ever been wrong. I was standing near the west entrance. Alive. At least, that's what it felt like at first. Shoppers passed me without a glance, arms full of bags, breath puffing white in the cold air. A child laughed. Someone cursed softly while fumbling with keys. Life moved around me in neat, practiced rhythms. The mall doors slid open. Warm air brushed my face. I waited for someone to scream. No one did. I looked down at my hands. They were steady, solid. No shadows slipping out of place. No whispers curling around my fingers. For a brief, fragile moment, hope flared. Maybe it let me go. Then I noticed the time. Every digital clock I could see, on dashboards, phones, storefront displays, read 9:47. Not frozen. Advancing. 9:47. 9:48. 9:49. The spell broke. A wave of exhaustion crashed into me so hard my knees nearly buckled. Not the kind of tired that comes from fear or sleepless nights, but something deeper. Hollow. As if parts of me had been scooped out and left behind. I stumbled to my car and sat inside with the door open, head in my hands. The radio turned on by itself. No music. Just static. Under it, faint and familiar, came the whispers. Not loud enough to panic anyone nearby. Not loud enough to prove anything. Just loud enough for me. Stay. Listen. Remember. I slammed the door and drove. They didn't find anything wrong with me. That was the cruelest part. Doctors ran tests. Psychiatrists asked careful questions. I told them about stress, about exhaustion, about working too much during the holidays. I didn't tell them about the parking lot. I didn't tell them about the voices that followed me everywhere now. Soft, persistent, like a radio left on in another room. At night, I dreamed of asphalt stretching endlessly beneath a black sky. Of vans lined up like teeth. Of faces pressed against glass from the inside. Mouths moving, begging to be heard. I always woke at 9:47 p.m. Always. My phone never rang anymore. It didn't need to. Messages appeared without notifications. They're listening. You remember US now. That's how it continues. I tried to destroy the phone. It reappeared on my nightstand the next morning, screen pristine, battery full. I went back to the mall one last time in early January. Not at night. Not on Christmas Eve. Broad daylight. Families everywhere. Security guards chatting near the entrance. I walked straight to the west lot. Nothing looked out of place. No vans. No hollow spaces between cars. Just asphalt and paint and ordinary winter grime. I stood there for a long time, waiting for the fear to rise. It didn't. Instead, I felt something else. Loss. A deep, aching absence, like standing in a room where someone had died and knowing you'd missed their final words. I understood then. The lot didn't chase people. It waited for them to notice it. And once you did, you became a bridge. I felt eyes on me. Not from the shadows. From people. A woman loading groceries paused and stared at me, brow furrowed. A man walking past slowed, his expression uneasy. They were reacting to something I couldn't see. I caught my reflection in a car window. For half a second, my smile didn't match my eyes. For half a second, there were others standing behind me. Faces overlapping mine, mouths near my ears. Then it was gone. I left without looking back. The disappearances didn't stop. They never do. They just don't make the news. A college student who went back for one more gift. A tired mother who answered a voice she thought was her child. A security guard working his first Christmas Eve shift. Cars found unlocked. Phones left behind. No signs of struggle. Always the West lot. Always around 9:47 p.m. I stopped trying to warn people. I learned quickly that the words never come out right. That when I tried to explain, my voice sounded wrong. Too calm, too rehearsed, like I was repeating something I'd been taught. Once, I grabbed a man by the arm and told him not to park there. He pulled away, unsettled. "Why?" he asked. I opened my mouth and heard myself say softly, "It remembers voices." His face drained of color. I let go. I didn't speak again. Christmas Eve came back. I didn't mark the date. Didn't need to. My body knew. The air grew heavier as night fell. The whispers sharpened, clearer than they'd ever been. Not frantic. Not hungry. Expectant. At 9:46, my phone buzzed once. No message. Just a vibration like a breath drawn in. At 9:47, the whispers stopped. The silence was worse. I stood at my window, staring out at the street. Snow drifted down in soft sheets, muffling the world. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed. Somewhere farther away, a siren wailed and faded. I felt the pull then, not strong, not urgent. Gentle. Like a suggestion. "You don't have to go," part of me whispered. Another part, the part that didn't feel entirely mine anymore, answered back. "It's already here." The shadows in my living room stretched toward the door. I didn't fight it. I grabbed my coat. The mall parking lot greeted me like an old friend. Lights hummed softly. Cars sat in neat rows. Breath rose from unseen mouths. People were already there. Some standing. Some pacing. Some crying quietly into their hands. No one screamed. We all knew better. At the far end of the lot, the vans waited. White. Green. Doors closed. For now. A man stood beside me, eyes red, jaw clenched. "First time," he whispered. I shook my head. "Does it hurt?" he asked. I considered the question. "No," I said truthfully. "It just takes." The lights flickered. The doors opened. The air folded inward. Voices rose. Not screaming, not pleading, telling stories. Fragments of lives cut short. Last thoughts. Regrets small and devastating. I felt them pour through me. Through my mouth. Through my memory. And I understood my role completely. I wasn't here to disappear. I was here to carry them. To walk away. To remember. To make sure the lot never stayed empty. As the vans closed again, as the people beside me faded into silence, a new weight settled behind my eyes. A chorus. Patient. Waiting. I turned and walked back toward my car. Behind me, the lot went still. If you're reading this, if you've ever felt watched in a mall parking lot on Christmas Eve, if you've ever heard a voice where there shouldn't be one, if your phone buzzes at 9:47 p.m. for no reason at all, don't answer. Don't speak. And whatever you do, don't listen. Because once the lot learns your voice, it never forgets. And it's always ready for one more story.